I think a lot of people, when they think about improving their pronunciation, at least for me, for a long time, I thought that if I spoke more, if I was doing more speaking, that my pronunciation would naturally improve, would naturally get better. My Chinese, my Mandarin would naturally get better by just speaking more and more and more. And don't get me wrong, I love speaking. I think speaking has tons of benefits, which I could probably make another video about that because that's really important. But for pronunciation specifically, unless your pronunciation is already pretty decent, pretty good, and unless you know the mistakes that you need to work on, the blind spots that you have, your common pitfalls, unless you already have that, understood, you already have that in your awareness, already looking out for that, it's very hard to, in the moment while you're speaking, for most people in a conversation, to notice, oh, I said this wrong. Oh, I didn't pronounce this correctly. Oh, I should have added more of a retroflex sound there. It's very hard to do that while you're in the middle of a conversation. And so for most people starting out, I highly recommend working on your pronunciation. If that's what you want to work on, if your pronunciation is something that you think is lacking and you want to improve your pronunciation, highly recommend working on your pronunciation outside of speaking with other people, outside of conversation. I think that pronunciation should be focused on specifically outside of conversation. Speaking is more for direction, motivation, it's fun. I'll make a video about that. But pronunciation, specifically pronunciation, I think learners should work on that specifically. Because that's a different skill than speaking. It's like, just think about if anyone's a basketball fan, watching the NBA, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, all the great players. Whenever they have an off season, you always see them coming back the next season way better with new skills, new moves, post-up move, fadeaway jumper, three-pointer, things like that. The off season is when they're putting in the work in the gym, practicing by themselves, working on building new moves, improving themselves. The regular season is when they're able to hone their skills. They're able to reinforce those skills, make what they've learned in the off season even better. Same thing, you can apply the same thing to practice and in game. Practice is when they're trying to work on something new, i.e. working on improving their pronunciation. The game is akin to speaking. That's when you're actually applying what you learned, but you're reinforcing that. So when you're speaking, you're reinforcing habits, and that can be good habits that you've practiced during, the off season, during your alone time when you're studying, or it could be bad habits that you haven't really practiced, but you just have developed over time by just speaking a lot. And so I think this is why sometimes people say you shouldn't speak right away, because you can develop bad habits. I don't totally agree with that, because I think that, speaking has tons of benefits outside of, pronunciation. Yeah, sure, you may build bad habits, but I think that you can still work on that. You can still be aware of that outside of speaking and practice pronunciation and be aware of that, all the pronunciation mistakes that you're having. And better yet, you can even record yourself and have that and review that. Because a lot of times, like I said, while you're conversing, while you're speaking, it's gonna be hard to, in real time, notice all those mistakes that you're making. You're probably so concentrated, like me, I'm concentrating on what I'm actually saying, how to actually say it. And even just the nerve-wracking nature of sometimes speaking, especially in another language, in foreign language, just speaking to someone in itself is nerve-wracking in itself. So trying to micromanage and figure out whether your pronunciation is correct is gonna be, it's too much to focus on. There's only so much bandwidth that you can focus on, you can use to focus on certain things. So anyways, pronunciation, definitely I think you should do that outside of speaking. And in terms of how specifically I would recommend doing that, I actually did that today. I haven't done it in a while, and I was just reminded by how good of a technique this is. It's basically reading out loud. So you can pick anything, pick your favorite short story, your favorite article, graded reader, and you basically just read it out loud. In Chinese, they call this 朗读, and basically it's just reading it out loud. You want to enunciate every character. You want to slow everything down. So this is all and you're doing this in your own alone time. So no one's listening to you. You can record it if you want to review yourself speaking. But the best way I've found to do it is, get the text, whatever you want to read, and just go to, so there's two websites that I highly recommend, mandarinspot.com and Purple Culture. I think it's purpleculture.net. The good thing about these is you can paste any Chinese text into it, and it gives you the pinyin. And if you hover over it, I think it also gives you the audio. I think Purple Culture does that. But either way, you have the pinyin. And so you can, while you're reading it, you can look to check if your pronunciation is good, if you're pronouncing it correctly. And so you can get really good by doing this. This is how I fix my pronunciation. This is how I improve my pronunciation. Because a lot of times I'll be speaking and I'm not aware. And so sometimes I'll confuse, common pitfall of mine is confusing first tone for fourth tone. And so by doing this, I can get immediate feedback. You know, am I pronouncing this correctly? So you can also work on your pinyin, you know, your retroflex tones, zhi, chi, shi, very common to confuse that with zi, ci, si, like basically Z or Z, ZH, C, CH, SSH, very common mistakes, or the finals, EN, ENG, an, like very common to confuse those things. So if you know those are common pitfalls, and they are for many people, they are for me, you can focus on that while you're reading. And I recommend doing that over and over again. Read it over and over again. And the goal is to first slow it down, pronounce each character slowly, enunciate it, so that you really, way slower than you would in speech, because the goal is you want to do it perfectly in practice so that it becomes second nature in real life, in the real world, when you're conversing, when you're talking to other people. And so you want to do that. You want to read it. And normally what I'll do is I'll read it slowly once. You want to pick something that's fairly short so that it's not so long that it takes you forever to do it. So you read it slowly once, and then you want to read it again and again. Repetition is key. Same over here. You know, as with everything else, repetition is key. You want to repeat it. And my goal usually when I'm doing this is I want to first slow, and then as I'm repeating it, I'm reading it faster. I want to increase the speed, but at the same time, I want to still enunciate. I still want to speak perfectly. I still want to maintain that pronunciation. And so you want to get to a point where you're speaking it so naturally, so quickly. I mean, it doesn't have to be super quick, but you know, at a natural, fluid pace that when it becomes time to speak with other people, you're conversing, it becomes second nature. So you're not thinking, it doesn't take up mental space. It doesn't take up mental bandwidth, so that you can focus on what you're actually saying or what to say instead of focusing on pronunciation, right? So just some 2 cents on improving your pronunciation. Something that I've worked on in the past and I'm currently working on. Recently, again, I'm bringing this back up because I want to try to improve my pronunciation. I want to try to read more. This is another great way to start reading more. And yeah, try it out, guys. See how you guys find it. If you guys have any other ideas, you know, how do you guys, let me know in the comment section below. How do you guys improve your pronunciation? What tricks or tips do you guys have? Maybe I haven't tried it before, but this is something that I really enjoy doing. I find it relaxing. I find it beneficial for improving my pronunciation so that when I'm speaking with people, you know, I don't have to worry about that. Okay. If you like this video, like, subscribe. See you guys next time.